The European Championships start Friday, and I've been making a lot of videos lately. U.S. men's national team, heavy, specific. I spoke a little bit about the Euros last week in my review of U.S. men's national team against Costa Rica, and then I thought to myself, I gotta say something. This is legitimately my favorite tournament of any sport on the planet, and I'm gonna tell you why. This is the Soccer OG. My name is Max Bretos. Subscribe right now while you have a moment. Subscribe, because we're going to do some storytelling. So hit the button now and get it out of the way. Thank you very much. Check out the Soccer OG podcast. I'm there with Taylor Twellman talking about the Euros. It's very enlightening. You might hear some things that I'm going to talk about here because this tournament means so much to me. It really does. In my professional days, this was 2000. I worked at Fox. We had the Euros. The Euros was a throwaway competition in the United States. Obviously, it was a big deal in Europe and parts of the world, but here it was like, well, I don't know. It's the World Cup, the leagues. What is this European Championship? Is this a World Cup? No. And earlier on, as I also touched on, I was drawn in by this competition. I didn't know what it was in 1988 or 1992, but I saw some of it, particularly when Denmark won, and heard this incredible story of this team that jumped in for Yugoslavia, who were tossed out of the competition, and Denmark gets into the tournament and then wins it with Peter Schmeichel, Jensen. I mean, it wasn't the Laudrups. This was a very different Denmark team that was able to achieve this incredible feat, beating reigning champions the Netherlands and Germany on their way to the trophy. You don't see that, and that kind of gets to my point. That's just one example of why the European Championships, to me, is the most compelling. It's not just to me. I will convince you that it is the most compelling sports competition on the planet. The Denmark story is part of it. I'm going to start with the comparisons to the World Cup. And obviously, this is not criteria determining what is better, but to me, I'll explain momentarily why it's better. The World Cup started in 1930, ran through 2006. There have been 21 World Cups. During that span, there have been 8 winners. The Euros began in 1960. There have been 15 editions. Of those 15 editions, there have been 10 different winners. Sports are their best when they're unexpected. World Cup is the greatest competition on the planet because of its scope. When we get to the end of the World Cup, we kind of know what's going to happen, right? The cream rises to the top, as Macho Man Randy Savage once said, the cream rises to the top. Yeah, dig it. The cream rises to the top. I'll never forget the 2002 World Cup. You had the United States, and Turkey, and South Korea, and all these incredible stories developing, Senegal. And then you had a final of Germany and Brazil. Sometimes it bucks a little bit, but generally you know what you're going to get. Not in the Euros. Not in the Euros. Denmark in 92, and then the biggest surprise result of all time, Greece in 2004. Greece qualified for the competition once. They made it, and then they had this formula, and the rest of the field, which was a really strong field, they beat Portugal in the final, the Czechs, the French. These were really good teams, and that's part of the reason no one gave Greece a chance, and then they won it. They went and won it. Greece has done a little bit since, but nothing like that. They came and they went. And when they were in the big competition, they won it. That's amazing. It's amazing. And the European Championships, because of the unknown, I will say this, and the 2016 edition, Portugal finished third in the group, came around, and Cristiano Ronaldo finally got over the hump, won a trophy, and Portugal won it. Not that it's a surprise that Portugal won it, but the means at which they did it. And then that 2016, and this is why I don't understand gambling in soccer. It just doesn't quite fit. It's very weird. But don't ever gamble on the Euros or you will lose, unless you're some crazy person who's going on some bets. So the 2016 edition, Wales, who had no soccer legacy. I mean, they had some great players who played for Wales, but not a team. They get to the semifinals. That same Euros, Iceland. This was as an American broadcaster, very rarely do you see a soccer storyline. Most Americans, I worked at ESPN, these places, they're like, not interested. The ESPN colleagues, when they caught ear of this Iceland story, they were mesmerized. ESPN sent Marty Smith to Reykjavik to cover the team. It's bananas. The European Championships do that. So the uncertainty, the quality of play, the fact that all these teams know each other is there's no really poor games. You don't have, all due respect, El Salvador losing 10-1 or the Saudis losing by 8 goals to the Germans. You don't have that. There is a gap. Even with 24 teams, top from bottom doesn't seem that far away. But the history itself is what really gives it. The performances that we saw in the Euros, the World Cup moments are great, but there's something about what happens in the Euros that I think is superior. 1976, Czechoslovakia. A man takes a penalty. His name is Antonín Panenka. He takes a penalty unlike anyone's ever done it before, where he chips it over the goal. Ever since that day, to take a penalty of that nature, and they still do, is called a Panenka. 1988, the Netherlands had a team that featured Ruud Gullit, Marco van Basten, Frank Rijkaard, Ronald Koeman. You'll be hard-pressed to find a better quartet of players than that. They won it. 4 years later, Denmark won it. 4 years prior, France won it. And maybe the greatest performance by a player in a major competition in any sport, really, is Michel Platini. He scored 9 goals for France, scored goals in every game as France went on to lift the European Cup. You don't see, in that moment where he kisses the trophy and then lifts it, iconic. There is a nice little video on YouTube where we're presenting this program where you can see the 9 goals of Michel Platini at the 1984. The list goes on and on. With 24 teams, you get some surprises, you get the heavyweights, and then you get this weird mix of things that just occur that are not explainable. 2000, France, Italy. They still had golden goal. They should have golden goal again. David Trezeguet winning it for the French. It's one of the few 4 or 5 best games I've ever watched. The European Championships keep on churning. So whether it was in the 80s or the 90s, the 2000s, you got to tune in. And to my good friends at ESPN, tune in there. You will not want to miss this. You have so many incredible storylines. You have to see if France, after winning a World Cup, can win the Euros. We go back to the Euros in 2012, 2016, where the Spanish won both of them. And then they won a World Cup in between. 2012, 2008, and 20. It's a great story. You're guaranteed for something good to happen. Every edition, something good happens. 2012, Mario Balotelli. I can't wait. Enjoy the Euros, and I hope I gave you enough reason to say why it is the very best when it comes to competition.